All right, so it's 7 o'clock, and we're going to get started. I'm so happy for those of you who have made it so far. I know some others are um, running a little late and coming from work, but if you can just let me know your name, who you are, your background, if you're a physician, if you're a nurse practitioner. So I've designed this one specifically for physicians, but I do have another program that I'm going to be introducing specifically for nurses, nurse practitioners, but I've invited some nurses, some friends to this webinar. So I'm hoping that they've shown up so they can kind of give me their feedback. But let me know, for those who've joined so far, what is your background, and what made you show up today, or where are you from? If you're I'm in Georgia, Sugar Hill, Georgia. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Colette Bullock. For those who do, welcome. But let me know in the chat, um, who you are or your background, if you're a physician or something else, if you feel comfortable sharing that. And then we're going to kind of move forward and get started with things. So I see one person. I see three people in there. So welcome, guys, as you're coming in. Um, Let me know in the chat where you are, where you're coming from. All right. We have another physician here joining us in Georgia. I see another IM physician who wants more information about what life looks like on the other side. And I can tell you life looks good, especially if you're, running this rat race of corporate medicine, whether you're a hospitalist or you're in an outpatient setting. I was both. And so what I became really dissatisfied with, and what made me decide to even create this course, is because when I was navigating the transition from being an employed physician to becoming self-employed, there wasn't a blueprint out there. There was nobody else that I could readily go to. There were some other docs that had, their own practices, but they didn't have the time or the wherewithal to be able to really walk me through step by step how to make this happen. And, therefore I took about 3.5 years doing research while I was employed as an outpatient physician, coming up with how I was going to navigate transitioning to opening up my own practice. And I did that by, trying to figure out all the steps needed. And so that's really my passion, to help other physicians, to other healthcare providers be able to navigate the transition out of corporate medicine, without having to try to take 3.5 years like I did to figure it out. Um, it was a long process. I was working while I was doing it, and that, I hope, shows you that you don't have to just quit your job either. You can transition. You can continue to work while you use the tools I'm going to provide you with, so that you can navigate a streamless transition. I literally, so I left my corporate medicine job back in February of 2020. I actually think it was January, like the last day in January. And I started my new practice February 1st. So I ended on a Friday. My last day was on a Friday at my employed position. And then I started my practice, and I opened my doors on February 1st of 2020. And as many of you know, that was during COVID. So I see some more people have joined. If you can just say hi, let me know what your background is, what you want or what you'd like to get out of this course. I'd love to hear from you, kind of know who's there, who I'm speaking to, so I can cater my message towards you. We're still waiting for a few people to show up, but I'm going to go ahead and start going through the slides and kind of moving forward. So, who am I? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dr. Colette Bullock. I'm a physician. I'm an educator, not only to other physicians, nurse practitioners, but medical students. I love to teach. And so this is just right up my wheelhouse. I'm the founder of my own practice, Legacy Medical. Um, and Legacy Med Spa, affectionately known corporately as Legacy Med. And my real background, or what I'm really passionate about, is preventative medicine, lifestyle medicine. With the med spa, I've now segued into aesthetics and regenerative wellness. I really think that the body has its own innate ability to heal itself. And even from the position of aesthetics, you don't have to use synthetics to achieve the goals. We all want to age gracefully. And so I found a way to use regenerative tools to help that happen. And so I think that's another avenue that a lot of people are not aware of. And it's another stream of income that I've learned how to navigate. Um, I'm guided by my faith, and everything that I do is guided by that. And as a result of it, I hold myself to a high level of integrity. And so my goal in this is not just for you to sign up for the course. Of course, I would love you to, but my real goal is to help you succeed and see you succeed. Um, by the end of tonight, the goal is for you to figure out why corporate medicine is designed to keep you dependent, and how to break free. I'm going to talk about the three fears a lot of physicians um, experience when they're going from making the leap to corporate medicine to private practice. I'm going to talk about my 6 module framework, and how this is designed to help you launch and sustain a micro practice. And when I say micro practice, that's what I consider my practice to be. I've When I initially started out, I saw that most practices spend 85% of their revenue um, on overhead, and that just didn't make sense to me. I thought if you could keep more of what you're making, you don't have to, work as hard. If you're only surviving on the 15% net, what happens if you can flip that? And so I thought by starting a micro practice, a practice where there was very little overhead because I kept all the overhead costs low, that it would allow me to navigate and keep more of what I was earning. And I've been in practice for the last 6 years, and that's what I've been able to do as a result of that initial thought. Um, I want to show you what your next move is, and how to make it. And I see we've had some more people join. Welcome, guys. I'm Dr. Colette Bullock. Hopefully, if you're not a physician, if you're a nurse practitioner, this is all also for you. I'm going to be creating something specifically for nurses, nurse practitioners as well. But a lot of the information is still applicable. I'm going over the overarching framework of the 6 module exit blueprint, which is created to help you design your own practice. So for the physicians and even for the nurses, you didn't go to school to work for a corporation. And a lot of times you end up feeling trapped. At least that's the way that I felt after a while. When I was a hospitalist, for those 5 years, initial 5 years of my medical career, it was daunting and frustrating to have people that didn't go to medical school trying to dictate how I treated my patients when I needed to discharge them, always being pressured to be focused on the discharge. When I switched from inpatient medicine to outpatient medicine, the focus was still the same. It's, you don't have control over your time. You're working for these models that are the more, more revenue you generate for the company, the bigger or maybe a slight piece of that pie you can get. But on average, most physicians are making somewhere in the, I forget the figure I looked up recently, somewhere between like 1.5 and 2.5 million for the company they're working for. And they're getting usually a salary of between 250 to maybe 350,000. So you have to, look at that and say, if I'm generating that much money for them, um, you know, I'm not getting a large piece of that pie. And not to say that they don't need to utilize that. Like I said, their overhead is often high. But if you can create a smarter model, then you can keep more of what you're making and preserve your time, preserve your autonomy, gain better control, of your workday and the things that are important to you. So, some quick notes. I would say keep a notebook nearby so you can capture some of the ideas. I'm going to be giving some usable points and things that I want you to go home and look at as homework to help you even start, even if you don't purchase my course, that you're able to take those things and use that as a starting point for how you need to organize your thoughts if you're really considering starting your own practice. And there's no time frame. If you are, in a season where you're thinking you want to do this in the next 3 to 6 months, perfect. If you're in a season where you're thinking maybe not for a year, still perfect, because the longer you have to plan, or the more information you take from me, the easier it is going to be for you to transition. And so hopefully, we'll keep this about an hour, and I'll do some Q&A at the end. But for the first 45 minutes or so, I'm just going to be running through the slides. I haven't quite figured out how to advance the slides without being on the slide page, so I can't really see the chat. But if you guys have questions, put them in the chat, and then I'll review the chat at the end. We're going to leave a specific amount of time for the Q&A. So if something pops up and you think of it, pop it in there, and then we'll go over it later. Or when we get to the specific Q&A time, we can go ahead and address it then. So the hidden reality. So corporate medicine promises you security, but security isn't really the same as freedom. And what I mean by security is you have the protection of a salary. You know what salary you're getting. You don't have to think about how do you obtain patients. You don't have to think about how you have to run the office, who you have to hire, all the things that are, a part of starting your own practice. But again, this practice model that people usually have in their heads, because this is the type they've usually worked in, where there's 20 employees and, there's 4 or 5 physicians, a PA, a nurse practitioner, large office staff to support all of these practitioners. That is not necessarily the model that I am introducing to you. With a micro practice, and when I started with myself and a medical assistant who also, uh, acted as my front desk person. And so, you know, I got on a insurance model where instead of me as a sole proprietor, I was getting on the insurance. Um, I don't even know what you call them, but signing up with the insurances. I got with a hospital system, and what that allowed me to do is not have to worry about it. They were negotiating the reimbursements, and because they were a large hospital system, that allowed me to take advantage of their negotiating power, with still retaining my independence, but having kind of like this big brother support. In corporate medicine, the system is built to keep you busy. But when you have your own practice, your own practice is built to serve your needs and your desires, what you want things to look like. And that's how I designed mine. I took the time and I wrote down everything that I noticed in the practice that I was in that I didn't like, or that I did like, that ran well, that didn't run well. And I incorporated those into my model. So why don't most physicians, and I'll include even nurse practitioners in this, those who are working in a corporate setting, why don't they make the leap? Why don't we make the leap? Well, one of them is, one of the fears is what I call the golden handcuffs. So you're getting a comfortable salary, and leaving seems too risky. What if all the what ifs that come up? What if I'm not able to compensate the salary that I'm currently making? What if I'm not successful in getting patients through the door? There are a lot of what ifs, but what I can say to allay those fears is, again, the strategies that I use for myself are the same things that I'm able to, present to you to show you how you can do it. It is very, very doable. And the wonderful thing based on our conversation and what you want to see your practice look like, it doesn't have to look like mine. I'm not trying to create an exact replica, but what I'm trying to do is help you use my wins and avoid my losses, like the things that I had to learn the hard way. And there weren't, I wouldn't say there were too many, nothing devastating, but I can then help you how to navigate what you want to see your practice look like. Another fear is the overwhelm trap. Um, Building something from scratch seems too complicated, too overwhelming. But the reality is, when you have a plan, it doesn't have to be overwhelming because all you are doing is following the steps. Step 1, step 2, step 10. And that is what I'm providing, that framework for the steps of what you need to do. So it no longer becomes complicated. It just becomes a list of boxes that you check off in terms of going from one step to the other. The other thing is the fear of failure. What if I leave and I can't make it work on my own? Well, I don't think any of you got through medical school, residency, um, you know, becoming an attending, getting through whatever other professional school you had to get through, and all the challenges of life without that being, something that maybe plagued you in the background, but that you overcame. There are plenty of things that we discovered that we weren't anticipating in the process of applying to medical school once we got in that we'd have to deal with, uh, applying to residency, during residency, as an attending. You have what it takes, if no one else does, to overcome whatever hurdles that you might encounter. And if it's something that you want bad enough, it's something that I wanted. And because I had my mind made up, failure was not an option. And so because it wasn't really an option, I've been able to be successful. And because I just was really enjoying being independent and being on my own, I've never looked back. So you have that stability of me being beside you, giving you that confidence that you can do it too. Because I'm not going to tell you I think you can if I think you're not ready. So what does it cost to wait another year? Because a lot of times you are hedging and saying, okay, I'm not going to step out. I'm not going to do it now. But what is it going to cost you? One more year of working for someone else with their schedule and hitting their quotas, but never realizing the things that you want to see for yourself. For myself, I was like, I can either continue to do this for somebody else or I can give it a try. The job isn't going anywhere. There's going to be a job. If you're in healthcare, you are going to be able to find a job. If for some reason it wasn't what you expected, at least my attitude was, well, if it doesn't work out, I can still always be an employed physician, but I will never be able to know what it is to have my own practice if I don't try. And I don't want to continue to live in this world. This is not what I became a physician for. And so it became it just became something that I was just unwilling to continue to do. One more year with no equity, no ownership, no financial upside. So you have to also consider you're building your retirement package. This is another way that I look at this. When you leave a job, you're not going to, at the end of the day, once you retire and finish working, that's it. The income is done unless you have some sort of equity in that company. Otherwise, when you leave, the salary ends, the benefits end. But when you own your own practice, you can expand that practice in whatever way you want. You could sell it in the future. I mean, I have people now, and I'm only 6 years in my practice, and it's been even before then that I've been getting offers to sell my practice. I just got one last week, and I'm like, what? Really? Like, how do they even know me and my little neck of the woods even exists? But they do. And so if I wanted to, I could sell my practice. I work in a building with a chiropractor. And when I first started, he was like, oh, I wish I was in your position, because even though he's been in business for 25 years this year, but so at that time I was 19, he was like, you can sell your business for over $1 million without even blinking just because you're a physician. So think about that in terms of retirement. Think about it if you want to keep it, but you don't want to be actively working in it. You want to have other people working in the practice for you. You hire other physicians, maybe you hire other mid levels, you hire other allied health people because the model that I have is to keep my patients in and recycle them in my practice as many times as possible. So if I can do an imaging test here, I try not to send them to someplace else to do the imaging. And quite frankly, they rather come to me to have it done because they trust me, they're comfortable here, the setting, is welcoming. Most of them say it doesn't even feel like in a medical office, and they enjoy that. So there's a financial gain to having a practice at the end of the day. When you want to stop practicing medicine, your practice can still practice for you. You could be the CMO while not seeing patients. You could sell it. So there's so many options. One more year closer to burnout with no plan to leave. So how many of us feel like we are running at our wits' end? We're constantly trying to keep up with the pace of the demands of the job that we're in. And it feels overwhelming at times. And you don't have any plan for what you're going to do to transition. Being able to open your own micro practice allows you the flexibility. I see, you know, I just today being a typical day, I saw 6 patients, right? I had 3 this morning. I create my schedule. My first patient's at 9 in the morning. My last patient's at 3 in the afternoon. So that means I end at 4 if it's an hour patient. I give myself another hour between 4 and 5 to close up my charts, get anything done that I need to so that I'm done by 5. So my day is essentially I come in usually about 8:30. Used to be 8 in the beginning, used to be 7:30 when I was prepping everything. And now that things have, gone along and grown, I can, do things a little bit more on autopilot. And so what would it feel like to be able to own your time? I'm trying to look in the camera because I keep forgetting. What would it feel like to own your time and be able to create your own schedule, see 6 patients and still make enough money to support your practice, to make a profit, to support those you've hired, to pay the bills? And not that that's what I see every day, but that was essentially I had, I think 5 physicals and 2 follow-up visits. So, and I'm going to show you if you decide to join the program, I'll break down for you. I'll show you a typical day for me and or a typical week, and then a typical month, what I'm able to make with keeping my schedule 9 to 5, essentially, seeing a very comfortable amount of patients, not pulling my hair out, seeing 14 or 20, 25 patients a day is what I was seeing in the outpatient practice, or even in the hospital. When I was a hospitalist, I was seeing that amount of people. What does it cost? One more year of options narrowing and not widening, because the longer you stay in the circumstance you're in, the longer you tend to stay in it because there seems to be fewer and fewer options for you to navigate. So the best time for you to exit was 5 years ago, but a better time is now. So if that's something that you're thinking about, continue listening. So quick check. I want you guys to engage a bit because I can't hear you or see you. So I don't know that you're even there, but type in the chat if this is you. I'm burned out and ready to make a move. B, I want to leave, but don't know how to make it work financially. Or C, I'm already planning my exit. I just need a clearer roadmap. So if you guys can type into the chat, A, B, or C, I hope you're there. I hope you're there. It says there's 7 people there, but okay, great. C, so I'm already planning my exit, just need a clearer roadmap. And if you're just here for information purposes or type that in the chat too. Like you're just exploring and you want to know what I did, and you don't even have a formalized idea like A, B, or C. But if it's something that in the future you want to do, or you think might be relevant, type that in so we kind of know what's going on. So yeah, need a clear path, planning an exit, need to be in my favorite spot. Um, Need to be in my favorite spot and scared. B as well. So I want to leave, but I don't know how to make it work financially. And so that's another thing that the blueprint will provide. It's not going to be theorized, it's going to be a laid out plan so that you can see from beginning to end what is your bottom line? Like, what do you need to make to replace your salary, but not just your salary? What do you need to make for all your expenses? Your private, your personal expenses, as well as the business expenses. So I have that all laid out in the plan. Another person also said maybe be in the future. So maybe right now it's not something you're specifically planning on doing, but you know, you maybe recognize that you need a blueprint because financially you're not sure what you would do. Great. So here's what I know. You're not the problem. The system's the problem. And you can build something better, just the way that I did. But what I provide is a way to help you navigate how to do that in a way that makes sense without having to go through the trial and error yourself that I went through. But I would say I planned pretty well. So it went really smoothly. And I don't even attribute that to me. I would say that's God. Because who planned for COVID to happen a month after I opened up my practice? Not me. But I always get people who, when I tell them when I open up my practice, they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," because we know a lot of businesses closed. There was just not a lot of movement, in the healthcare space during that time. But can I tell you, my business grew during COVID. And one of the main reasons is because I thought of telemedicine before I started. And because I had that in place and I had already a subscription with ZocDoc, I got so many patients looking for an online doctor because so many practices didn't have that available. And because we were staying in place and people were not coming into offices for that, at least that first month and a half, I was able to gain a lot of patients. Um, so what does it look like to build on your own terms? So let me show you the framework of the Exit Blueprint. And the Exit Blueprint is the program, the 6-module program that I've created to help you navigate. Now, the first, because I can't see my notes, let me see if I can see on here. The first one is the exit mindset. And this is really designed for you to get real centered on what is it you want. Um, what is your mindset? What are the fears that are hindering you? What are the things that are keeping you from making the move? And what do you really want? What is it that you want your practice to look like? And that segues right into design your practice. Me helping you walk you through the steps of how to design the practice, how to build the foundation. That goes from where do you get the finances to what do you need to do for credentialing? What do you need to do in terms of creating an LLC if you don't have like your business entity? All the aspects that are necessary to actually formulate all the technical parts that are necessary to form your own business. And not just, it's easy enough to form an LLC, it's easy enough to get a bank account, but all the other things that are involved in it when it's a medical practice and the credentialing and all of those steps that are involved. And then the revenue by design, that is the step, again, that I was talking about before, that helps you to figure out what's your bottom, what's your floor, what do you need to make, what are all of your expenses, and then how many patients would you need to see based on what you've decided your practice design is. Because some people want a direct primary care practice, some want fee for service, some want a mix. And it doesn't, even regardless of your specialty, this is still a program you can use even if you're not internal medicine or family medicine. It can still be very foundational even if you're going into specialty. Lead with confidence. This is the portion that's going to help you feel secure and know what direction you're moving in. And I want to hold on. Let me just look at my notes here because I can't see my PowerPoint notes from this section. This is one of those things that's going to help you decide on how do you find patients, how do you find staff, how do you hire correctly, and then lastly, built to last is your longevity. How do you keep the practice going? How do you not, flop after opening, after the first couple of months? Your operating systems, your boundaries of the design. Again, I said hiring and delegating. How you figure out how to measure success in terms of your expenses and your income, those things. How do you run the practice and not let the practice run you? So this is all designed to help you go from feeling trapped, if that's where you are, to feeling the freedom that can come with having your own practice. So step one, the exit mindset. I'm going to go through them in a little bit more detail. So this is where you go from I'm an employee to I'm a physician entrepreneur, or an entrepreneur, a nurse entrepreneur, whatever your professional ranking is. So this is where you're getting honest about what you actually want from your career. What kind of medicines you want to practice and for whom? Are you staying because you want to or because leaving feels too hard? So, you really want to get clear about what this is. I know when I first wanted to start the practice, my husband was not for it. He was like, oh, you need to find a job. And that's part of the reason why I spent the 3.5 years researching, because he was not ready for me to step out. And so I really need to get clear about what it is I was going to be doing, what was required. And, it ended up serving me very well because I had every detail I could think about written down. I was stalking, you know, every aspect of my practice that I worked in, how they did things and what documents they use. I just paid a lot of attention because, again, this is not something they teach us in medical school or residency. There should be a business course that, if that's the avenue you want to go in, this is, one of the ways that you can do it. So this week, because I did say I want to give you some tangible things to walk away with, this week, finish this sentence in writing. If I had my own practice, it would look like. So what would your ideal practice look like? Not what you think it should be, not what you've seen in the past, not what makes sense based on the model you've seen other people, but what would it look like for you? And that's what I did with myself. I gave myself the freedom to dream without boundaries. And then after I came up with the dreams, then I came up with, okay, well, how would I make that happen? And so I'm in a very, I really enjoy what I do because every day I get to redesign it. I just wrote a book. That book came from me introducing my patients to, because of, those of you who are internists understand most of what we see are things like hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, kidney disease, all these things that are a result of lifestyle choices, which can be reversed with lifestyle choices. And so I wanted to give my patients a tangible way of reversing some diseases. So I had listened to this health coach who said she's got all these hundreds of clients that she puts them on this raw diet for a week. And in 1 week, you can see improvement in their issues within a few months, weeks even. So some of them are able to come off their blood pressure medication and stay off. And so I said, let me try this in my practice. And I did. I think starting out, I started like 25, 30 people on it. Everybody had excellent results within that first week. But then they started asking me, well, what about variety? How often, how many times a year should I do it? Is there any more variety than this little, one pager I gave them with a 7-day raw diet? And so there came the inspiration for the 7-Day Raw Reset, which is the book, which you can get on Amazon right now, that I created. So step 2, design your practice. Go from reactive to intentional. Choose your practice model: direct primary care, cash pay, hybrid, or specialty specific. What's your ideal patient panel? Who do you want to see? How many and how often? I didn't want to, my practice draws certain people because they're looking for the type of medicine that I practice. Not everybody's compliant, not everybody's perfect, but I will tell you, I have some wonderful patients. Like, honestly, I love my patients. One or two people come in that sometimes it's like, oh goodness, and usually they self exclude. Usually they're so unreasonable that doesn't matter what we do, how much we bend over backwards, they leave. And I tell my practice manager, don't fret it. They just helped us. We just got rid of a problem. So somebody else is gonna take their place. So don't even stress about it. Um, what your micro practice looks like fully designed before you build it. So this is part of what this module is meant to help you do. Before you step forward, you already have it figured out. And you have me as a guide to help you navigate whether it's reasonable or whether it's something that you should, parts of it you should hold back until later. Focusing on one thing is often very key to being successful. And then as you grow, um, adding on. When I started, I just basically started with the bare basics. I had 2 exam rooms, I had exam tables, I had a stethoscope, I had, a printer, a copier. What I really needed, what they needed from me was in here and in here. And when I gave that to people, people responded. I have whole families that come to me. One person comes to me, usually the wife, then she makes the husband come. Then if their kids are of age, they come. Then I have grandparents. I mean, I have the whole family, and not just with one, several families, because usually once one comes and they are so impressed with the quality of their care, they refer everybody else they know. Sometimes I don't even know the connections until years later, and they tell me like, oh, that's my aunt, or that's my, best friend. But when you give quality care, you get quality people who are looking for and value quality. So those are the type of people that you can draw when you decide what kind of patients you want. Another assignment for this week: sketch your ideal micro practice. What do you see? What do you charge? If it's direct primary care or it's cash pay. I have a hybrid, so I take insurance. I felt like that was the most secure way to start because I knew there were patients that were going to follow me, even though I had a non-compete. I didn't tell them; they found me on their own. Um, but I felt that that was the most secure way for me to start. And then I eventually, obviously, you have self-pay for insurance base for people who don't have insurance. But then I created the Med Spa, which is totally cash, and that's another stream of income. So you can decide what's another area that you're interested in. I got interested in the Med Spa because I wanted stuff for myself. That's why I got started. I don't do things I'm not passionate about. So that's why the Med Spa started. Um, what do you charge? What does a great day look like for you? So figure those things out now. Start writing them down. Step 3, build the foundation. From where do I even start? I have a plan. So what's your business structure going to be? Are you going to be an LLC, a professional corp, a PC? And what's the right setup for your state? So if you're not in Georgia, that's something else that we can explore. And the information is easy enough to find, but you don't have the time to delve into the weeds. And yes, you could certainly use an AI chatbot like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, but they don't always give you the exact information. They give you information. It's like when our patients Google stuff or use chat, right? They don't do it in context. There's no context surrounding it. So they come in thinking they're dying, right? But meanwhile, it's like when you put it in context for them, they realize like, oh, okay, just because I have symptom A, B, and C does not mean I have cancer. Same thing, same concept. Just doing it in a vacuum isn't isn't as helpful as doing it in the context of somebody else who can help you figure that out or who's done it already. Malpractice, credentialing, compliance. What do you need before day one? What electronic medical record are you going to use? What are you going to use for scheduling and your billing infrastructure? Who's your biller going to be? Where do you look for that? What should you look for? What's the operational backbone of your practice? Another assignment for this week. Write down every question you have about starting a practice, all of the things that you may be wondering about. This list is going to be the foundation for your roadmap. This is going to help you figure out. So even if you don't use my exit blueprint and my services, these are places that you can start. These are the things that I did when I started. Step 4, revenue by design. So from billing, what insurance allows, to building a financial model that works for you. One of the most frustrating things can be for us when insurance decides they only want to pay a certain amount. And so that is part of the reason I went with the covering of being under a hospital system, because when I looked at the reimbursements from other hospital systems, when I looked at it, if I just applied for credentialing as a sole proprietor, as a sole practitioner, then the reimbursements are significantly different. And so you want to make sure, if you're doing something like insurance, you're creating a model that works for you. If you want to do something like cash pay or membership model, how are you going to price your services? Building revenue streams that don't depend on insurance or reimbursement, if that's something that's important to you. And modeling your year one financials. What do you need? When do you need it? And how do you get there? So that's another thing that Module 4 is going to help you do. Another assignment for this week: model what you need to earn in 1 year to match your current take-home pay. Start with that as your number. Step 5, lead with confidence. So going from physician to physician CEO, hiring your first team members and doing it with intention. I cannot tell you how much my practice manager, I mean, if I did not have her, she goes above and beyond. And quite frankly, me even finding her she was a referral from, from somebody who she'd worked in, was a physician assistant who was working for me, and she had worked in her husband's practice. He was a psychiatrist. So her background was different, but what you're looking for is the integrity of the person, the work ethic. That can be challenging, I'll say, post-COVID, in the post-COVID world. But there's so many ways that God has helped me to navigate around that, using virtual assistants, using AI now for certain aspects. These things help, again, for you to keep your overhead low, and for you to still find success. My practice manager was out today. So I had to do everything myself. Well, my virtual assistant was in the background answering the phones and making the phone calls and doing a lot of background stuff, but there was nobody there at the front desk. And thankfully, because it was a slow day, it was easy enough for me to do, but it was easy for me to do because the systems are already in place, and all the things that we really need to navigate. We've created a design that even if something like that happens, I can still navigate without an issue. Um, Building a practice culture that reflects your values from day one. So what's important to you? Integrity is important to me. Operating in excellence is important to me. I just have certain standards. I'm not going to allow my patients to have to endure certain things. One of the biggest things I saw when I was in employed private practice, outpatient medicine, is that the things that will get your patients upset with you the quickest are things that have to do with billing, um, the wrong person answering the phone, and or front office staff being rude. Like, so those are things. It's often the bedside manner of the physician is the least of problems, because I wouldn't expect, if you're starting your own practice, you're not going to have a good bedside manner, right? That's what's going to win patients. But if you don't have the right staff, if you don't have the right person answering the phone, if you are messing up their billing, that'd be the quickest way to lose some patients and get some bad reviews. And I'll tell you, you're going to get bad reviews. If you look at my reviews online, and I encourage you to do so, there are people on there have said things that are not even true because they were upset because they got charged a $25 copay when they didn't show up for their appointment, after they signed the agreement that said if they don't show up, they get charged the amount. So you're going to have those things, but you can't worry about those. You have to concentrate on the 90%, the 95%. And people will read those reviews and realize people, may have been unreasonable. Actually, I think, your reviews look more authentic when you actually have some people who have some issues, because issues will happen whether or not you do things perfectly or not. You can't do everything perfectly because life is not perfect. So things come up that are not under your control, but you can still handle them with excellence. And so that's something that's paramount in my practice. Stepping into the CEO role and leading your practice, not just practicing in it. So when you step into this role, you are not just working in your practice, you're working behind the scenes. And the more help, the more planning, the more you've taken the time to figure out what that requires. And again, that's probably the biggest area for me where my losses can be your wins, because I would say everything else really in my practice has run really smoothly. That is the one area where I've had to make the most pivots and learn how to not overwork myself, because you don't want to go from overworking for one, from an employer and then overworking yourself in your practice. That's not the goal. But the exit blueprint is one of those things that can help you navigate that. So another assignment, write your personal leadership philosophy. What kind of practice culture do you want to build? What are you looking for? All right, number 6, built to last. From I hope this works to I built this to last. Sustainable growth that happens, sustainable growth that doesn't burn you out all over again, like I was just talking about. Building a practice with meaning, identity, and clear purpose. And legacy, not my legacy, but the legacy. And that's why I named my practice Legacy, because I wanted to create a legacy of health for not only my patients, but the people who worked with me and worked in the practice. But what does your legacy look like? What does this practice stand for you? And what does it leave behind? Because I think only what we do, you know, selflessly is really what lasts. If you look at people when they die, right afterwards, they're well spoken of if what they left behind was a legacy, was something that benefited other people. But don't forget yourself. You get to, from this, gain so much of your freedom, gain so much autonomy back, gain so much financial independence. In my first year of practice, I was able to earn net, right? So after paying all of my expenses, $50,000. And that's working 3 days a week. I still don't work full time in my clinical practice. And I make 10 times that, in a year now. So it's very, very feasible. I'm going to be working with you to give you the tools so that you can go from startup to, functioning, financially thriving practice in less time. So this week, write one sentence. In 5 years, my practice will be. So what do you want your practice to look like in 5 years? Where do you want to be financially? How much money do you want to be making? Because if you have a plan for it, then you can plan to succeed. I would say for me, that's a step that I really didn't do. I just was like, okay, I can't take this corporate medicine thing anymore. I know I can at least make what I'm making the practice, because I was seeing my revenue. If a lot of you are on an RVU model, you get to see what you're making the practice. I'm like, if I'm making them that much and I work 2.5 days a week, I can do that for myself. And if I keep my overhead low, then I can keep most of that. And so that's what made me step out. But now that I'm at this stage, I am now implementing my own advice, right? Like now I'm figuring out financially, if I want to grow even more, what do I need to do with all the things I have in place already? And so Again, the exit blueprint, this is the complete framework. Module 1, it says step 1, but they're in modules. So step 1 all the way to step 6. Exit mindset, giving you clarity on what you want and why. Designing your practice, giving you a practice model built for your life, and not you trying to fit your life into your practice, which is what a lot of you are probably doing right now. Build the foundation, the operational checklist before day 1. What do you have to do? All the things that you need. Revenue by design, a financial model that works for your transition. So you're not transitioning, leaping out by faith, and insecure because you're unsure of how you're going to make money. You've already got a plan in place, and so all you need to do to make the money you want is to execute the plan. Lead with confidence, leading as a physician CEO from the start, and then built to last. Sustainable growth on your own terms. So how do you continue to make your practice grow and continue to allow it to thrive? That's what I'm going to help you do. So your homework for tonight, the transition audit. These are the things. You can take a screenshot of this or you can write it down. What is actually keeping you from leaving right now? That's question number 1. Number 2, what would my ideal practice look like? What patient type, what schedule, what model? Number 3, how much do I need to earn in year 1 to make this leap viable? Number 4, what do I need to have in place before I give notice? Step 5, what is my 90-day plan to start building towards this? And step 6, or question 6, what does success look like for me in 5 years? Your answers equal your roadmap. So even if you're not ready to start today or within the next month or next 3 months with me, this gives you the foundation of where you would want to start. So the gap, again, I just want to talk a little bit, the gap that usually keeps most physicians stuck. So you want to leave corporate medicine, but the actual doing of leaving it, is the rub. I know I should have a plan, but you don't actually have one. You could build your own practice, but the actual building of it is part of what's keeping you stuck. And I need to figure out the finances, and then actually having the numbers. So the information alone doesn't close the gap. You have to have some sort of structure. You want some sort of accountability to help you stay on track, because we live very busy lives. And if you don't plan for it, if you don't schedule it in your day, it's often very hard to get it done. So what most physicians actually need, it's not more information. You need a clear sequence path. You need the right tools and the templates. You need accountability to actually do it. And you need someone who understands what it's like to be a physician, or for those who are nurses or nurse practitioners, what it's like to be someone in healthcare running their own practice. That's what I built. So this is from a physician, and I had another doc with a video, but I didn't get time to include it. But, this is from a doc that I just spent really like an hour or 2 of my time with, giving ideas on what could be done. And I asked her for an endorsement. And this is kind of what she said. Speaking with Dr. Colette completely shifted my perspective on what my medical career could be. She broke down the complex requirements for designing my practice, giving me the exact blueprint and clarity needed to build a business that actually works for my life. So that's what I want to help you do. The Exit Blueprint program is a 6-module physician-built program, me the physician, to help you design, launch, and build a micro practice, and make the exit from corporate medicine that you've been thinking about. This is not a course you consume. It's a practice you build. So it is filled with the modules, which are in webinar format. So you're watching them, so you could speed them up, slow them down, stop it. You get lifetime access to these. And then in addition, you're getting a workbook, and at the end of each module, you're getting the steps that actually help you build the foundation of all the questions that, or all the information it's teaching you, what you would actually need to do, all the steps to work through each module and have the answers at the end of it. So the whole program is designed so at the end of completing it, which most people can do in 6 to 8 weeks, you have all the tools you need to actually get started and launch. Um, Again, so here's just a little overview of what the complete system is. But also included in that are the practice capacity and revenue model tools. So that's an actual like Excel spreadsheet that you can plug in your numbers, like, what your expenses are, and then you can figure out. So I'm not just asking you to figure out in your head, like how you're going to come to the numbers you need, but this tool allows you to do that. The workbooks that I spoke about. And then there's the AI practice model. And this one, that's actually a bonus for those who are early adopters and sign up for the program before, I think Thursday at midnight is the cutoff. This gives you the prompts you need, over 200 prompts to help you get started. So I think the next slide tells you a little bit more about it. So the tools that change the game. So the practice capacity and revenue model tool, this helps you know your numbers before you give notice. Your real financial floor, not just your salary, but all the numbers you need to know. Your panel size in terms of patients and the pricing you need to charge to hit your income target. Your month by month ramp, and your break even timeline, and your reserve amount to save before you give notice. So what you would want in reserve before you say sayonara. Your AI practice builder toolkit. This is going to help you launch faster. So it helps you sound like a pro on day one. It's got over 200 pre-built physician specific or healthcare specific AI prompts that are going to help you with all the documents you need, all the marketing, tools that you would want in operation, so that you can then plug these into Chat or Claude or Gemini and get those documents already formatted without you having to come up with it or you having to type in. If you don't know, what's important about using AI to really have it work for you are the prompts. So the proper way of telling it what you want. So it's not giving you something ultra generic and something that doesn't specifically apply to what you need it for. These are pre-tested. They're things that I've used. You paste the details and then it sends you the information. So then you get weeks of build time recovered in just one day. That's a beauty of AI and how I've learned to use it in my practice, how I'm currently even expanding with tools. And that's something I'll be able to share with you if you join. So if you want to join, what's the criteria to determine whether this program is for you? So if you're employed in corporate medicine and you're done waiting for it to get better, you want to practice medicine on your own terms and actually enjoy it again. You thought about starting your own practice, but you don't know where to begin. You're tired of someone else's schedule, their quotas, their decisions about your patients, and you're ready to build something that's actually yours. This is not for physicians who are content with their employment. If that's you or you're a nurse practitioner, you're content with where you are, this isn't for you. This is for ones who know that they're meant to do something more and just need the framework on how to step out and do it and help to guarantee their success. Now, your success is guaranteed by you putting in the work, but if you have a proven framework, that is going to, give you a higher rate of return and hopefully make sure that you're successful. I think you're going to be successful. So what's your investment? So for the foundation, that's the $10,000 program. What's in that? And I'm going to go over that in the next slide, but that's mainly the course itself, all the workbooks that you need. And this is if you want to do something self-paced. If you want to be able to go through the modules at your own pace, you're able to do this, but this doesn't have what the implementation program does. The implementation actually has coaching support. So that's me helping you go through, and I'll show you on the next page the specifics, but go through the course with some accountability, with some ability to talk to me about, next steps, what you need to do when you maybe run into a snafu or you have a question. And for those who sign up by midnight on the 17th, which is Thursday, as a bonus, you'll get the AI Practice Builder Toolkit. And so understand, because this might sound like a lot of money, but if you think about it, if you are doing a direct primary care model and you have 150 patients and you charge $150 a month, you already see within that, if you do the foundation, you already see within that first month the return on your investment. And so, like I said, I was able to, in that first year working part time, make a significant net income. And that was without knowing the things that I know now that I can teach you. So to go over a little bit more specifically, what's included. So you get the 6 modules in the workbooks in the foundation and the implementation package. You get the practice capacity and revenue model tools. You get the AI practice builder toolkit, and you get email support if you're in the foundation. And the you have unlimited access to the webinars and the tools. So if you need to go back in there, if you want to, start and stop, whatever your pace is, you're able to do that. But the implementation model is really designed for those who are ready to implement. And so you're getting those one-on-one coaching calls. You're getting accountability check-ins throughout as we decide however we want to schedule them. You're getting documentation review so that I'm able to look through some of the things that you're preparing. You're included in that monthly group Q&A calls that we're going to have. And then you get to be part of the cohort, because obviously, since I'm a working physician, I can't, do that model for a plethora of people. I can only take 2 per quarter. So if that's something that you're interested in, this allows you to get that hands-on touch if you're really ready to move forward. So enrollment at this level is a significant commitment. So before you step in, reach out. If you want to talk to me personally, you're able to do that. Some of you may already have my phone number. So, you may already know, I've spoken to some people about it already. If you already know that you're ready and you can see the value in the investment, but you want to just talk through a few things with me, reach out to me, send me an email, give me a call, send me a text. We can, talk further. So if you're ready to make the next step, choose your enrollment option. So you can complete your checkout, which only takes a few minutes. You will receive a welcome email within an hour of that. And, I apologize because I was supposed to paste these links into into the chat. And I'll figure out a way to do that. If anybody is interested, just let me know and I can send it to you. But you're going to get a replay of this. And so if you want to sign up, you can, there'll be a link. The links will be in the replay, but they'll also be in the email sent with the replay link. So this is our time for Q&A. I'm just at about an hour, so I didn't do too badly. So if you guys have any specific questions, send them and put them in the chat. I want to be able to answer any questions that you have. I'll go back. I don't think it's really feasible, but let me go to this in case anybody wants to be able to look at it. But like I said, this is my first one I'm giving. Trying to operate the YouTube was a little bit of a challenge. So that's the only reason I didn't post the links for the purchasing in the chat. How do you choose a location? Oh, okay. So in terms of where you want your practice to be, how do you go about choosing a location? If you use my model, you choose something that's convenient for you and close to home. So for me, I knew where I wanted to be. Where I wanted to be also made sense. There's a lot of models that will, based on the demographics of the area you're going to be and the patient model, the insurance plans, if you're going insurance, if you're going direct primary care or something that's more of a cash-based model, there are models that you can use to try to decide on what makes sense. If you're probably somewhere in Gwinnett County already, if you're in Georgia, there are a lot of ideal places where you're going to be able to attract the patients that are going to be able to either have the insurances that pay well or have the money out of pocket, depending on what you're offering. So I would say that's a more specific question that we can kind of delve into based on what what's important to you, where you want to be in terms of location, and then what kind of practice you want to have. Um, Let me see. Any other questions? Thank you. Somebody said I'm inspiring. I thank you. I didn't pay her to say that, but I appreciate it. um, Let me see if I'm able to copy the links and paste them in without it taking too long, because I don't want to take up your time. Um, your time is important. That's one of my tenets too. I don't like wasting people's time. Um, so somebody asked, how do you go about being under the umbrella of a hospital system? Is that always an option for a hospitalist? Would you recommend working in a clinic before trying to open your own practice? So I don't necessarily think you have to um, work in a clinic before opening up your own practice. It depends on what you want to do. So certainly that can give you, if you're used to being in inpatient setting. I remember it was daunting for me to transition to outpatient medicine because inpatient medicine is a much different animal, and trying to figure out, how do I treat the less acute things. It wouldn't seem that it would be more intimidating, but in ways it was, because it was like, okay, yeah, what do I do for chronic back pain, and what do I do for X, Y, and Z? So if that's kind of where you are, a clinic, working in a clinic first, may be an option for you that you might want to explore. But you're already a physician. Honestly, you still have to go through the same transition of getting acclimated to working in a new practice as working in your own practice. And a lot of times, you doing the work is what teaches you, what you need to do. Think about when you went from being in residency to being your own attending and being in situations that you maybe hadn't encountered before. Even though you trained probably in mainly a hospital setting, you still had to learn things. So, um, again, that would be something I'd want to talk to you more about personally so that I could really help you flesh it out. But it doesn't necessarily have to be something that you do first. Um, your other question about how do you get under the umbrella of a hospital system, you know, probably any of the hospital systems that are in your area, they all have a credentialing process for docs who work in the community and under different auspices, but that's something I can talk to you more about. So it's an easy enough process. It's an application process, typical, similar to the application process to getting privileges of the hospital, but a lot of them have what's called a, I'm blanking on it right now, a clinical integration network. The hospitals that have that kind of CIN, you can apply to that and then become a part of it. And it's just researching. I researched Wellstar versus Piedmont versus Emory and looked at their reimbursement models. I talked to people that were in them and then got advice from people that were already getting reimbursement. So I was able to learn kind of who are the higher payers. And I ended up going with Piedmont, who happens to be one of the highest payers in the area. Um, what are typical startup costs? So, this is another fear of a lot of physicians, that it takes a lot of money to get started. It doesn't necessarily. I started on a wing and a prayer. I worked for a couple of months. So I worked part-time at the clinic, the outpatient large private practice where I worked 2.5 days a week. Then I also worked part-time at PCOM teaching. And then my half day, I worked there 2 days a week. And then my other half day, I started working for another service where I did evaluations for the VA. And that was to, get some extra money to get started. I would say I started with maybe, um, well, part of what helped, my parents gave me some money that helped me fund the build out, because the model that I started, I looked for a space, I got a certain space, and that's the way I decided to go. But before I even did that, I was working out of a room in a chiropractor's office and renting through the company I was working for. So they paid for it, renting a room, and that's a thing people don't think of. So honestly, your startup costs don't have to be high. They can be as little or as much as you want. My startup costs were probably less than $10,000 based on outside of the build out. The build out was about 35,000. But outside of me deciding to do the build out, if I hadn't done the build out, it was the cost of my exam tables. It was the cost of getting a copier, a phone line, which I did. I think my phone line was a Google number at first until I got a proper like Verizon or Spectrum, whoever I ended up using in the beginning. And then I had like my equipment, which was mainly just my EKG machine, because that's what I needed. What did I need to be able to do the jobs I normally do? I need my brain as an internist. That's the most important part. I need a stethoscope. I need an exam table to put the patient on and supplies related to that. The labs, I decided I was going to, do the labs in the office. The Quest and LabCorp, they provide you with all the equipment that you need. You don't have to purchase any of that. They provide you the centrifuge, they give you the tubes, they give you all the equipment. And there are a lot of opportunities like that. So your startup costs could be as low as $5,000. If you have, depending on what your rent or your lease is for the space that you are keeping, and whether you decide to do a build out or whether you start with a one room practice and build from there and gain the money you would need to do the build out. I worked for a few months, well, a few years, but in terms of saving the additional money that I didn't need to live off of, I worked for I think about 6 months with that extra job working for the VA, and so that provided my startup money. Um, how much money to save? How much money to save for starting out? Do things ramp up fast? How to weather the $50,000 first year? So I ramped up, the credentialing process can take a while with insurances. That's usually somewhere between 3 months, 6 months before you can get paid. It's really about 3 months that you expect. If you start that ahead of time, once you start seeing patients, if you've got all the credentialing done before you start, which I did, then your payments usually start coming through by about 3 months. Um, and if you have a reserve enough to provide for what your needs are in that time, whatever expenses, and your expenses are usually low starting out because you may not have a high patient volume. When I started out, I was seeing like initially I had 4 patients a day for the first couple of months. And then it just, I mean, slowly ramped up throughout the months. And by the time I was seeing maybe what for me is a full panel, like 7 to 14 patients a day, that was maybe like halfway through the year. It depends. I didn't do any advertising. That's another thing. If you market, you might get more patients sooner. I just use the insurance panels to do most of my advertising and ZocDoc. And ZocDoc had a system where, they go on there and they see you, they see your profile. They're looking for somebody in their area. So that was kind of like, it wasn't free advertising, but for what I was paying for ZocDoc, I didn't have to do any of that legwork myself. So people found me that were looking for me. And then once word of mouth got out, then people just started referring their friends and family members. And so I think if you do a good job at what you love, people are going to want to come to you. Um, can you start the credentialing process while already credentialed with your employer? Um, yes, because I did. Yeah, I did. Because you're not credentialing under you or your, oftentimes your employer has you credentialed under them, right? So you're not getting direct payments to you as a physician. And even when you credential, for most insurances, you're credentialing under your company. You're not credentialing under you necessarily as a physician. And even when you are, for instance, like Medicare might be the only, you know, thing where there's some things to work out in terms of how you do it. But yeah, you can definitely credential even while you're employed. Now, if you are thinking about credentialing with the same hospital system that you work for, that may be something to look at. But they are actually two different entities. Um, the hospital system that I'm under, the department I'm under, which is called Community Connect, is, even though it's under the umbrella of the hospital system, it's a separate entity. So, you know, it's a whole different kind of system. So yeah, it is definitely possible. But if you know, these are things that you want kind of answered in more details, take that opportunity to email me, call me, and flesh out everything. You know, before you decide if you want to join the system. The implementation package, now obviously this becomes part of your startup cost, but again, if you start up right, you're making that back within the first month or two, right? And we are factoring all of that into what you need to be making, who you need to be seeing in order to, even outside of that, also keep the income, or have the income you need for all your other expenses. But for the implementation program, I also have a pay plan where you're paying as you go. So instead of having to pay that entire 20,000 upfront, you're able to pay a down payment of 2,500, and then monthly you're paying 1,750. And again, we're working through all the numbers, so you'll be able to see what that looks like for you in terms of you know, to make sure you're making enough to support that and your practice and your home. It's definitely feasible. So if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to let you guys go. I appreciate so much your time. I appreciate your support. Um, Again, if you have any other questions, let me put my email back up here. You can email me. Enrollment is open. The links are not in the chat, but I will, everyone who enrolled, I'll just send them to you through your email. So if you are interested in getting started, you can get them through the link. The bonus, if you're interested in it, closes at midnight on Thursday. If you have questions, email me at colette.bullock@legacymedllc.com. And I'm going to make the replay available for you. So if you know, there's some things you weren't able to write down, some things you want to look at again, you'll be able to have the replay. And feel free to pass the replay along to other physicians, nurse practitioners that have interest in this area, and that it could be a help for them. So I hope you guys got everything that I was hoping you would from it. Thank you so much. And I'll see you again. Hopefully, I'll hear from you soon. All right. Bye.